Good afternoon. This is Brian Hittman, professor of kinesiology 120 concepts of wellness. We're going to be talking about emotional wellness and stress management and some mental illnesses, how to assess it, and seeing signs and symptoms, and how to get help for those diseases. So let's get started. Mental health is a major concern for people of all ages, including adolescents and young adults. During these years, our bodies and life circumstances are changing rapidly as we grow up. We establish our identities and form new relationships. Lots of decisions need to be made. And all this change can be exciting and present wonderful opportunities for fulfillment, but they can also lead to significant pressure and unwarranted stress. Sometimes the stresses are manageable with the support of friends and family, or by relaxation techniques, or making lifestyle changes such as getting more sleep, more exercise, eating healthier. You're able to manage these stressors by just making these simple changes. But on the other hand, sometimes the pressures can lead to significant clinical depression, anxiety disorders, or even serious eating disorders. Also, in adolescents and young adults, there are times when genetic predispositions to inherited mental health illnesses like depression, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder, personality disorders, and schizophrenia, they'll show their signs, they'll manifest, and you'll see signs and symptoms of those diseases. Now let's get an assessment of your emotional wellness. 3 points for almost always, 2 for sometimes, 1 for seldom. Almost never is a 0. Here's the first. I am able to develop and maintain close relationships. I accept the responsibility for my actions. Number 3, I see challenges or change as an opportunity for growth. Number 4, I feel I have considerable control over my life. Number 5, I am able to laugh at myself. Number 6, I feel good about myself, my appearance, my behavior, my actions. Number 7, I am able to cope with stress and tension. 8, I recognize my flaws and learn from my mistakes. Number 9, I am able to recognize and express my feelings. And number 10, I experience joy in my life. Add those up. You're in a good place. If you're 25 to 30 points, there's always room for improvement. If you fall between 19 and 24, 0 to 18, might be a good idea to talk to somebody, tell them what you're thinking and where you're at, to see if somebody like a trained professional can get you some help. Emotional wellness. Humans are complicated, and numerous aspects within our life, with interactions with others, physical, mental, sociological, different traits all influence our behavior. Emotion. Emotion is the interaction of your feelings, attitudes, and thoughts, along with personal awareness that these factors can influence the choices and decisions that you make. Emotion is the interaction of your feelings, attitudes, and thoughts, along with your personal awareness that you know that how these factors can influence the choices that you make. The second trait is feeling. Feeling is an emotional state or reaction, an emotion or sensitivity. Feeling, an emotional state or reaction. It's how you respond to factors in your life that help you make decisions. Attitude. Attitude is a manner of feeling and an indicator of a mental or emotional state. A manner of feeling and an indicator of a mental or emotional state. The attitude, how you approach something, how you approach an incident, how you approach another person, your attitude, the manner of feeling that you take. Thought, pardon me, thought, ideas and outlooks prevalent at a given time. Ideas that are in your head, what you're thinking at a given time during an event, during right now when you're trying to listen to this PowerPoint. Thought, ideas and outlooks prevalent at a given time. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of and control and express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Some good examples of high emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Things are clear. The person is clear in their mind that what they feel and how they feel. Another example of emotional intelligence is to be able to gracefully accept defeat. It's being able to let go and accept the situation as it is happily. So gracefully accepting defeat, understanding that it is what it is. You need to let it go and move on and accept it happily or with a good attitude. Number 3, empathy is another example of emotional intelligence. A person is comfortable to walk in someone else's shoes. They can see, they can understand what that person is going through, what they're thinking, how they feel. Emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, to control and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Self-awareness, thoughts and feelings can influence your decision, knowing that they can influence your decision, seeing the consequences of a decision, and taking personal responsibility with that decision and following through on your commitments. Emotional intelligence. Emotional wellness. Emotional wellness inspires self-care, relaxation, stress reduction, and the development of inner strength. It is important to be attentive to both positive and negative feelings and be able to understand how to handle these emotions. The goal of emotional wellness is to direct these influences in a positive way so that the choices and decisions that we make will have a positive impact in our lives. It also includes the ability to learn and grow from experiences. Negative emotional states. It's normal to experience normal periods of sadness. We all feel sad at some time for whatever reason. However, depression is more severe than just a few bouts of feeling sad. Depression is described as a loss of pleasure in life, a sense of hopelessness, and a perception that days are filled with disappointment. Depression is a loss of pleasure in life, a sense of hopelessness, and a perception that the days are going to be filled with disappointment. And along with this sense of hopelessness is a belief that one's life is meaningless and has no purpose. As the vicious cycle continues, feelings of hopelessness and a lack of purpose can pull self-esteem to even lower standards. Depression. Some signs or things to look for: depression, helplessness, hopelessness, loss of interest, sleep patterns change, eating patterns change, you're irritable, restlessness, loss of energy, don't care, have a hard time concentrating. Depression comes in 2 forms: mild and clinical. Mild forms of depression are temporary and usually they disappear with time. It doesn't get as deep, it's not as a strong emotion, and you're able to cope with the disappointment and move on from it. Clinical or severe depression lasts longer and can require treatment using antidepressant drugs and help from trained professionals. Mental illness can be found in numerous traits. And one of those is guilt. Guilt. Feelings of guilt commonly arise from a sense of that we have done something that we believe we should not have done, or we have failed to do something we believe we should have done. It's the should and should not statements. I'll say that once again. Feelings of guilt are associated with something that we believe that we should not have done, or we have failed to do something that we have done. Along with guilt comes self-blame, a feeling of culpability for an imagined offense or from a sense of inadequacy. We believe that we are bad and that we will be judged in a negative way because we did or did not do whatever our should or should not statement implies. In addition, guilt degrades our sense of personal worth. In our minds, we create a negative label of ourselves and begin to live down to that level. Anxiety. Now, this is a toxic emotion. Everyone at one point or another will experience anxiety, which is a form of fear. Anxiety, defined as a sense of crisis at any moment, possibly involving a perceived threat, fear, tension, or apprehension. Excuse me. Anxiety is commonly associated with chronic overactive stress responses, negative thoughts that usually run wild, and a constant state of worry that focuses on the worst case scenario. It interferes with our daily functioning. So worst case scenario, anxiety, we can't concentrate, negative thoughts fill our heads, trait anxiety, two different types of anxiety, consistent and personal, something that is on a chronic basis, is something you deal with all the time. State anxiety is dependent upon a situation. Trait anxiety, which means the anxiety or fear can appear in various kinds of situations or is more of a constant personal trait. It's a more stable and enduring pattern of behavior. State anxiety. State anxiety is dependent upon a situation and may appear only in certain specific situations, like having to present a speech or having to do a voiceover PowerPoint, teach a class, take a math test. State anxiety is dependent upon a situation. It only presents itself in certain situations. Healthy anxiety can help us prepare to deal with various situations in life. Neurotic anxiety, on the other hand, is considered a toxic emotion and is often made up of distorted thoughts. Hostility. Hostility is extreme anger. Hostility is a form of anger, but anger at a much higher level. A hostile person is easily frustrated, easily excited, and is aggressive when challenged. Hostility is defined as a negative approach to other people, and it can include abusive thoughts, statements, and actions. It damages personal relationships, and it can damage your personal health. Pessimism. Pessimism is a negative outlook. It is defined as a belief that the negative outweighs the positive, an expectation of the worst outcome in any situation. A pessimist believes that a situation will never change and accepts most of the blame for the negative outcome. The natural progression of a pessimist strings together like the following. Number 1, I did poorly on the math test. Second, I will do poorly on all math tests. Number 3, I will always do poorly on math tests. And number 4, it gets to the point where they have no confidence in themselves. I am not capable of learning math. Their glass is half full. Pessimism can lead to depression, a sense of hopeless inevitability that no matter what action one takes, the outcome will be negative. Improving your social wellness. How you feel emotionally can affect your ability to carry out everyday activities, your relationships, your overall mental health. How you react to your own experiences and feelings can change over time. As you get older, you will be able to pull from past experiences, which enables you to make better decisions. You can improve your emotional wellness by being positive, surrounding yourself with good people that share similar values as you. Be open and express your feelings and your ideas. Learn to take criticism and learn from it. Exercise, be active, and maintain a healthy diet. Learn to approach life optimistically. Accept and adjust to changes. Be open. Learn to cope with stress in a healthy way. And enjoy life despite disappointments, which will happen to all of us. Stress and emotional wellness. Stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. It can come from any event or thought that makes you feel frustrated, angry, or nervous. Stress is your body's reaction to a challenge or demand. In short bursts, stress can be positive, such when it helps you avoid danger or meet a deadline. Let's assess your stress. Answer yes or no. Irritability. Shorter fuse these days, the little things make you angrier. Sense of humor. Laughing less, too serious. Do you have a sense of humor? Are you laughing more? Are you laughing less? Are you taking things too serious? Are you worried? Are you reliving or projecting future anxious emotional experiences? Depressed, resigned over the way things are? Do you worry about things going on in your life? Excessiveness, eating, drinking too much, too many mood stimulants. Are you making poor choices by what you eat, drink, poor choices to do destructive behavior to yourself? Excessiveness. Forgetfulness. Can't remember little things lately, have a mental gridlock. Aches and pains, recurring headaches, frequent gastrointestinal distress, tension in face, jaw, shoulders, back, or chest. You're feeling the tension throughout your body. Nervousness, talking faster, more than in the past. Fatigue, you're feeling run down a lot, tired but can't get restful sleep. Illness, you're more susceptible to allergies, colds, flu, and other ailments. Time pressure, often feel as if there's not enough time, or there's not enough time to get your project done, or there's too much to do and not enough time. Now, if you answered yes to more than 3 of these traits, you do have chronic stress and need to figure out how to alleviate the severity of that stress, being able to cope with it and deal with it. As I said before, stress is a combination of the demands people experience and the negative outcomes that those demands create. Stress is the single most significant factor that influences our personal well-being. F. Roberts expresses this difficulty in his definition of stress. Stress, in addition to being itself and the result of itself, is also the cause of itself. Approximately 75% of the U.S. population reports experiencing great stress at least once per week. That equates to over 245 million people. Duration, specificity, and intensity all have a role in determining how harmful stress will become. Duration is the primary trait in determining if stress will be for a long period of time or a short period of time. Let me take a step back. Eustress, two different types of stress. Positive stress that motivates and leads you to positive outcomes and actions. For example, realizing that you have a work project that is due in 4 weeks. This can motivate you to take the initial steps to start planning for that project, not putting it off to the last minute. Positive stress of knowing the importance of this project motivates you to get busy to achieve favorable outcomes. Stress does have a positive impact on performance. Greater the arousal, greater the performance, but only to a certain level. Distress or negative stress. Negative stress that leads to negative patterns of thought and action, and that directs one's focus away from positive thoughts and actions. Distress. Negative stress leads to negative thoughts, actions, and it overtakes every thought that you have. Distress makes you stress and worry on a chronic basis, leading to poor habits, the way you feel, like we talked before on the last slide. Nervousness, fatigue, illness, time pressure, not having enough time. You're always in distress and have negative thoughts. Dr. Albert Ellis states that there needs to be 3 components that must be present for stress to occur. First, an activating event. The first is activating events, which is a stressor or any physical or social or psychological event or condition that triggers a response. Maybe you're somewhere, some location triggers a response, or hearing a song, something that triggers a response or condition is the first activating event. The second is beliefs and perceptions, how one interprets an event or condition. Third, consequences. Whether the response is logical or not, the body will react almost immediately when the brain registers a potential threat. Consequences. The height is increased of the perceived fear, the anxiety. Stress is compounded and builds depending on the consequences. Now, stress can come in many different degrees or levels. Rapid and extensive changes can occur in people's lives and the worlds in which they live when they're exposed to extreme events and disasters. Excuse me. These catastrophes can cause great stress to people, families, communities, because of their inherent effects, such as causing short-term fear of death and exposure to traumatic events. People's ability to rebuild, recover, and adapt following a disaster are determined by their own physical, psychological, and social characteristics, as well as characteristics of and support they receive from their families and communities in which they live. So you're able to cope with the stress, cope with the situation if you have support from communities, families, friends. You're able to rebuild, recover, adapt, and move forward. Catastrophes as a stressor, such as a natural disaster or a wartime stressor, torture, assault, rape, and any other events can traumatize people that they later develop post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Individuals have vivid nightmares or flashbacks in which they relive the traumatic incident over and over and over again. Professional help is a necessity in treating this severe stress. The drive theory. The drive theory is based on the principle that we are born with certain psychological needs and that a negative state of tension is created when these needs are not satisfied. When a need is satisfied, the drive is reduced and we return to a state of homeostasis and relaxation. Now, later studies did come upon another conclusion through the inverted U theory, which states that too high levels of stress can decrease performance. There is a point at which continual increases in arousal decreases rather than increases performance. It means the stress is too much and you crack under pressure. You're not able to right the ship. You're not able to manage the stress, and it makes you fail. So the inverted U theory proposes that performance improves as arousal level increases, but there is a threshold point. And at that threshold point, things will become worse. At low arousal levels, performance quality is low. At medium arousal levels, sporting performance peaks. And here we were talking about before, activating event, something that triggers a reaction, a response. It's beliefs and perceptions, what you see as a threat, and then knowing the consequences. What is the threat? Your tuition is due. You don't have enough money to cover those costs. The cable bill comes, or the PG&E bill comes. You don't have enough money in the account. You see that as that's the activity, that getting the bill in the mail is the activating event. Knowing having the beliefs and perceptions of what the outcomes, the consequences that can come from not paying your bill. Your power is going to get shut off, and you won't have what you need to survive. The aspirin age. Stress can be a negative and vicious cycle that can influence every part of your well-being. Charles Swindoll goes far as labeling our culture today as the aspirin age. Okay, gone are the days of long walks on the beach, excuse me, and easy come, easy go lifestyles. Hectic times call for instant meals, strained relationships, shouting matches, and not enough sleep. Financial setbacks, failure at school or on the job, social media, obesity, fear of almost everything that is negative, materialism, divorce, fake news, killings, lack of tolerance to others. You name it, we as a society have to deal with it. So much stress that it gives society a virtual headache. Perceptions and appraisals. How do we respond to stress? How does a person perceive an encounter, an event? And how they contact largely depends on the person's level of stress. How they're going to act to, or how they're going to react to an encounter largely determines how that person's level of stress is going to affect them. Primary appraisal, a stressful event, might be irrelevant, might be positive or stressful. During the primary appraisal of an event, a person evaluates how relevant the event is to them and what kind of impact it is likely to have. This results in a broader categorization of the event that influences the way a person internally and externally reacts to the event. For example, a good example right now is the coronavirus. Okay, we're asked to stay home. All right, this could be appraised as good. You could be happy with it. You weren't deciding to go out. You didn't want to go to school. You didn't want to go to your job. You're at home. That could be a good thing in your eyes. How you appraise it. It can be bad. If you had plans, if you had stuff to do that you needed to do at school, you had a trip that you had planned, You were going to go shopping, you were going to meet, you're going to go to a concert, whatever it may be. It's bad if you have to cancel those plans, or it may not be relevant to you. If if you didn't have any plans, you don't have any things to do, so you really weren't wanting to leave the house or needed to leave the house anyway, it doesn't really matter to you. It's not relevant. So it's all the way you perceive and appraise the situation is how we respond to stress. Secondary appraisal. Secondary appraisal is the cognitive process that occurs when one is figuring out how to cope with a stressful event. You're figuring out what to do. During this process, a person decides what coping options are available. Now, a harmful event requires immediate evaluation of coping options because it has already occurred, whereas threatening or challenging events allow one time to gather more information about events. Prior experience or being exposed to similar situations previously provides a frame of reference to determine the options available for dealing with that situation. For example, if an event, such as an upcoming exam, is perceived as threatening to someone's goals, yet the person feels that he or she has the resources demanded by that event, like the person has the ability to study and prepare for the exam, then the person might experience the event more as a challenge than an actual stress. But if the person feels or she does not have the resources that's needed for the event, that's the secondary appraisal. They might not think that the event is important to her long-term goals, so they may not respond with a sense of getting things done or needing to get things done, if they don't perceive it as being something that they need for their long-term goals. Now, most stressful life events that each one of us either has dealt with or that may happen to you in the future: death of a spouse, death of a child, divorce, marriage, separation, a family member in jail or you're put in jail, chronic health problems, work issues, marriage issues, trouble with a pregnancy, children are stressful, going to college, doing the work, paying for it is stressful. Not having enough sleep allows you to you have to deal with stress, and it's hard to do that with not a clear head, and having lack of sleep does that to you. Finances is stressful. Not having enough money to meet demands of your bills, getting food, clothes, whatever it may be. An unplanned or abrupt change. Coronavirus is not unplanned. This is a very stressful time for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or if you're 95. It is stressful on everybody. It's how we assess it and deal with it will determine how we come out of it, positive or negative. Fight or flight response. During stressful times, the body's alarm system has prepared it to physically fight for survival or to physically flee in order to survive. Walter Cannon describes the act as a fight or flight reaction of the body when it is exposed to stressful demands. Cannon states that this reaction is the body's way of preparing and dealing with physical, life-threatening demands. It is meant to prepare the body to either to flee the perceived threat if needed. According to Susan Kubasa, stress-hardy people have 3 characteristics that help enable them to cope with stress. They are control, challenge, and commitment. Hans Selye has proposed a three-stage model describing how people deal with chronic stress. It's called the general adaptation syndrome. The first stage is the alarm reaction. The second is resistance, where the body seeks to restore equilibrium. And the final stage is exhaustion. They just give up if the equilibrium cannot be regained. Now, this gas, otherwise known as general adaptation syndrome, can occur with any type of stress. Stressful events can include a job loss, medical problems, financial troubles, family breakdown, or some kind of trauma. While stress is unpleasant, the upside is that gas improves how your body responds to stressors, particularly in the alarm stage. Signs and symptoms of stress. Your blood pressure is increased. Your cholesterol levels are elevated. You have chronic headaches, indigestion, reflux, stomach issues. You don't sleep as well. You sleep for shorter periods of time, or you don't sleep at all. Or sometimes you sleep more. Both ends of the spectrum, sleep disorders, are a definite sign and symptom of stress. Chest pains, not being able to, the anxiety takes over and creates a physical reaction of panic. Chest pains come from that. A weakened immune system. You're just not healthy. You're constantly worrying about life and what's going on around you. Excuse me. Signs and symptoms of stress. Behavioral. That person has a negative attitude. If they're under a lot of stress, they're irritable. They can't focus. They eat for comfort. They can turn to alcohol, the use of drugs to medicate your anxiety and stress. It's how some people deal with it. Emotion. You feel powerless. You feel hopeless. You have a lack of motivation. You're crying all the time. You're angry. You're unhappy. You're not able to deal with the event or situation. Now, signs and symptoms of stress, the cognitive part. Your brain, what's in your head? You have an inability to make decisions. You have negative thinking constantly on your brain, on your mind. You have an inability to focus. You don't laugh anymore. Your memory is affected. And you're easily angered. You jump to conclusions and treat people poorly. Stress management consists of making changes to your life. If you are in a constant stressful situation, preventing stress by practicing self-care and relaxation can help you manage your response to these stressful situations when they do occur. People can learn to manage stress, lead happier, healthier lives by keeping a positive attitude. Accept that there are events that you cannot control. Be assertive instead of aggressive. Assert your feelings, opinions, beliefs, instead of becoming angry, defensive, jumping to conclusions, or even passive. Learn and practice relaxation techniques, meditation, yoga. Exercise regularly. Your body fights off stress a lot easier when you are fit. Eat healthy. Learn to manage your time more effectively. Set limits appropriately and learn to say no to requests that would create unwanted, excessive stress for you. Make time for hobbies, interests for you, relaxation. Get rest and sleep. Your body needs to recover from stressful events. Don't rely on alcohol, drugs, or other compulsive behaviors to reduce stress. Seek out social support. Spend time with those that you enjoy, that share the same values. Other ways to manage stress: prayer. Excuse me. Laugh. Take your dog out for a walk. Take your cat out for a walk. Whatever you got. Spend time with your pet. Share your feelings. Seek medical help if nothing else works. Support groups. There are people out there that are in the same situation if you aren't able to manage stress. Now, handling stress can be differently, it's different between genders. Okay, men and women react and handle stress differently. Both produce these three chemical hormones called cortisol, epinephrine, and oxytocin. So listen to this scenario. Okay, a wife has been angry at her spouse all day, not making eye contact and ignoring his questions. Yet he seems completely oblivious. At the end of the day, you confront him, the wife confronts him about the situation, and he seems shocked. He says, "I didn't even know you were angry with me." And as hard as it may be for as hard as it may be for the wife to imagine that he was clueless to those cues, he might be telling the truth, or he is telling the truth. It has a lot to do with how men and women handle stress differently. Okay. Cortisol and epinephrine lower immunities and raise blood pressure. Oxytocin softens the reaction of the cortisol and the epinephrine by relaxing the emotions. Men release less oxytocin than women, and therefore have a stronger reaction with both cortisol and epinephrine. And because of the increase in oxytocin and reproductive hormones, such as estrogen, women are tenderized to nurture and to reach out to others to both protect themselves and their young. Women are more about relationships. In fact, their self-esteem and identity are often dependent upon their feelings of adequacy within those relationships. Women will often sacrifice their own needs for the needs of others. Their self-esteem is so wrapped up in relationships that a woman may let others' needs determine her stress limits while ignoring her own needs. Women nurture and reach out to others when confronted by stress. They seek support and talk therapy to lower their anxiety and find a solution or answer to their problems. By processing emotionally what has occurred, women share the stress of their predicament. Men, on the other hand, are wired to be problem solvers. They compartmentalize and repress their emotions to either fight or run away. Males are invested in performance and competition. They instinctively don't pick up many social cues and innately view eye contact as a challenge. Men let competitive accomplishments and ambitions establish demand ranges, inhibiting self-attention and directing it toward winning. Thus, for a woman, the worst stress is a threat to her relationship, and for a man, it's the inability to perform, compete, and achieve. Men seek escape when confronted by stress. They change the subject through diversions, such as sports, for example. They do not discuss their feelings and would rather hit a golf ball than talk. Now, for any FPU students that may be having issues with stress in their life, on-site counseling program is available to you. And here's the information. Give them a call. I think it's like $5 copay. They're great. They will listen to you, help you cope with whatever you're dealing with. I highly suggest contacting them if you are in that place. So this is the end of this PowerPoint. I believe next time we'll be talking about intellectual wellness. I will be giving you updates on assignments and what's coming up daily. Any questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email or send me a text. Thanks.